If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet, I'm glad to tell you that we're back. We've got RSM James Teitge with us. As you can see, he's got a nice manly beard. I told him he looks something like Sean Connery. So as always, you are very welcome with us. Thank you for coming back. We appreciate your time. We're talking tonight about emergency drills. It came out of a previous episode. We were talking about how you would practice and practice and practice before you go on a raid or on a mission. I wonder if you can tell us what is an emergency drill? How do you use it?
Okay, first of all, I just want to mention that the task at hand, let's say you go out on a mission and you must go and demolish a bridge or attack a target or whatever. That is the easy part. I can show a grade 12 student how to arm a mine and attach a mine to a tank or to a bridge or whatever the task is, and that will take me 10 minutes to show any person how to arm a mine and to attach it to a target. That is the main event of any operation, but that's also the easy part. The difficult part is to get to the target and to withdraw and move back to a safe area where you will be picked up and then taken back to your home base or whatever the case may be. So, as I said, the very difficult part is to get to the target and to withdraw. And the emergency of the whole operation is if something goes wrong. In other words, if someone gets wounded or the group gets picked up and you must escape and evade and flee to a safe area where you will be picked up later. And those two parts, the going into the target and to withdraw, that is the most critical part and the most dangerous part. So if a team, a reconnaissance team, or any of our groups or teams gets picked up and have a little contact with the enemy, and there's firing taken place, and then you must escape and evade to evade the enemy further, and that part is the most difficult part of any operation. So we rehearse and we practice what do you call it, to go into the target, to infiltrate. That's the word I'm looking for. To infiltrate to the target. And then you do the target, which is a short period of time that you utilize to, let's say, for example, to demolish a bridge. That is a very short period. But the infiltration to the target takes very long, and also the exfiltration to move out is also a long period of time. So while you on the target area or moving to the target area, you get picked up by the enemy, and there's a short skirmish that will take place. That means you are compromised, and then you must immediately withdraw, and the operation will not take place. So you have to withdraw and move to a safe area where you will be picked up and taken back to your home base. So in any of our operations, the emergency drills is the most important part of any operation. And that is rehearsed and practiced thoroughly and intensively. so that if something goes wrong, we can handle it. And also our escape and evasion plan is the let's say the core of any emergency plan. So if I can use the example of Operation Amazon, we rehearsed and practiced the emergency part of that operation throughout and thoroughly and with great care. I will never forget with Operation Amazon, when we rehearsed and practiced the emergency drills, you have to say it, say it up like a recitation. You must know exactly what time the RB, the rendezvous point, the first rendezvous point, how long is it open, and what is the code word to enter this rendezvous point, and also the second RV point. And also you must know exactly what that RV point looks like. You must know all the different code words to enter this RV point. Take note that most of our operations takes place at night. So when you get to a RV point, you don't know what it looks like in the dark. So if you come close to this RV point and there's another Recce guy that's there before you, he can't see who is nearing this RV point. So he will shout the code word and you must answer the correct code word so he can let you in. So the emergency drills is the most important part of any operation, so that we can escape and evade safely to a safe point where a helicopter or a boat or whatever will pick you up and take you to a safe area. So before we execute any of our operations, we practice and rehearse our emergency drills to the full. And we do it over and over and over. As I said, to do the task at hand, at the target area, that's the easy part. But the escape and evasion after someone gets hurt, and it happened before. It happened before a couple of times with our teams, that they walked into a patrol group or they got picked up and they have to fight their way out and escape and evade. It happened a couple of times, or something went wrong, like that one guy that got caught by a crocodile immediately, and the crocodile is not the enemy. He got caught by the crocodile. He luckily escaped from the crocodile. He went to the river bank and he started immediately with his escape and evasion plan. Each operator will have a map, which is part of his escape and evasion plan, escape and evasion equipment. It will be a small ration pack, it will be a radio, it will be the map, it will be medical equipment, and small equipment like that. And that's part of your escape and evasion plan. So the escape and evasion plan is the most important part of any operation.
May I ask you, sir, thank you for that. I can imagine a lot of things can go wrong. And the problem here is when they go wrong, you're on your own. You're always on your own. You don't have the support which I suppose other special forces units might have, just to call in the helicopters or something. You're on your own. So this RV point, what would it be? Would it be like a big tree or just a map reference?
Yeah, it will be an outstanding point, something like a static area, a house, or a water pump, or whatever. which is a point that is outstanding and it's easy recognizable. It cannot be a tree in a bush because there's many trees, so it must be or road crossing where roads cross. That is also an easy point that you can use as a rendezvous point. So we use outstanding features on land, what we can use as an RV point. It can be a high mountain, a little mountain, a copy type of thing, but most of the time it's road crossings or buildings, old buildings or whatever.
When you say to me it's open for a limited time, so what do you mean?
Well, the first RV point is always open for a very short period of time, maybe 10 minutes, because that's a crucial part. And it might happen that some of the members in the team cannot make it in time. So then we've got a second RV point, which is much further away from the target area, and that will be open for longer, maybe 20 minutes. And then we've got a third RV point further away from the target area that will be open for longer. So it depends on the terrain and the target and the type of task that we're going to do. How we're going to determine the RV points, the rendezvous points where we must assemble after something went wrong on an operation.
So when does the counting start? When the first guy arrives there? Or is there some other way of calculating when your 5 minutes will start and end?
Well, the calculation will be determined by the distance from the target area or your route. You see, if there's a long route, the infiltration route, if it's a long route, then they determine on that route, they determine a few RV points. So if you pass a certain point, then the next RV point will come into consideration. Then you ignore the previous RV points, the closer you get to the target. And the same way back, as you go exfiltrate, we've got a few RV points, we call it the first RV points, that is en route. In other words, it is RV points that is close to the immediate proximity of where you are at that very moment. So you use that RV point, which will not take long for the team members to get to that RV point. I just want to mention, in some cases, when you have contact with the enemy or you are picked up, located by the enemy, then you can have a contact with the enemy, a few shots will be fired, and you withdraw, because normally a reconnaissance team or a small team will not have a lot of firing power to take out the enemy. So you withdraw and you have to escape and evade from that area. So immediately from that very, let's say, vicinity, the vicinity from there, as soon as you start to evade, we break up and we run in different directions. So the team is not together the whole time. So they split up so that the enemy doesn't know where we are at that very moment. And then at some stage, when the team splits up, and then they will go to that RV point, and there they will assemble again to carry on with the next part of the task, or withdrawal, or whatever the case may be.
So it's a matter of regrouping. If you have a point, you split up for whatever reason, and now I think we call it bombshell, or that's what the terrorists used to do. And then you would go and regroup at a certain point, an RV point. And okay, then
Correct.
you wait there for a while for your mates to arrive. And what happens if they don't
Correct.
arrive?
Yeah. Say again, Chris?
What happens when, say, if you wait and no one arrives, or there's only two of you? Or what do you do then?
Okay, as I said, RV point, one of the part of the emergency procedures is that RV point will stay open for a couple of minutes. If that period is done, then they move to the second RV point. And we can have up to 3 or 4 RV points.
Would you
And
leave any... I'm sorry, please continue.
The second RV point will be open for longer. So that gives the chance for the members to assemble in a longer period of time.
Okay, now you did say that when you approach this point, you might be challenged, or you might challenge somebody with a code word which is specific to that RV point.
Correct.
Now, sir, what happens if for some reason this fellow cannot speak? Let's say he's shot in the jaw or something, but he can still run. Is there other ways of communicating besides your voice?
Look, if someone is shot or wounded, we will know it immediately in the contact area. And we will not leave a wounded person behind. So you will not be alone. There's no way that you will be alone. And if we break up in twos, not in ones. Your buddy, in any operation, you've got, you're in a buddy pair. In other words, you've got a buddy with you the whole time. So if someone is wounded, all of us has got radios among us. We will switch on the radios and tell the other members that a member is wounded or something is wrong, and we will do our utmost best to get that person out of that area and take him to the RV point. So I don't think the case that someone is shot in the jaw and he cannot speak, that will happen. I mean, if someone is shot in the jaw, he cannot run. Someone must help him. Because to be shot in the head area is quite a serious injury. And the rest of the team will know it. And that person will be casevaced out by other members to a safe point or to the RV point. So I don't think it will happen easily that someone will be shot in such a way that he cannot speak.
Have it ever... Well, let me always say this to you. So I know that the raid on the beta, I think the Amazon one, is a classic example. It's so good that it's still studied today. But I do know on Gerald Bridge, when the ski boat started overturning, one of them, there was, I suppose, seriously thinking of whether you're going to go on the run or not. So I need to ask you, in the history of Special Forces, how many times did it happen that people had to make use of these emergency RV points?
I must mention that in all the operations I've done, we never had a problem like that. But I know of a few teams that had problems like that, and they have to escape and evade and make use of the emergency drills. And luckily, most of the time, the guys got out safely and they escaped and evaded safely. There were some operations, I say some, I mean, I can mention one, where operators got killed and one got wounded that stayed behind, and they could not retrieve the bodies or the wounded person because the enemy was overwhelmed and they had a big group, and there was no way that a small team can fight back to retrieve the bodies or a wounded person. But that is only one operation I know of that happened. But most of our operations, we never made use of the emergency drills to escape and evade. But you cannot say it will never happen to me. I was just lucky that it never happened to me in any of my operations I did in the past. So I never had to make use of the escape and evasion plan or the emergency drills. But it did happen. If I can think quickly, at 2 occasions that people have to make use of the emergency plans, and it worked well, and they escaped and evade perfectly, and they got away. I only know of one operation where one operator got wounded and 2 got killed, and we could not retrieve the bodies, and we could not fight their way back to help the injured person. That only happened once ever in the history of special forces.
May I ask you, sir, how do you train people in escape and evasion?
Escape and evasion is part of your cycle, and you get trained and you get drilled into that during some of our courses in your cycle. But when you do an operation, the escape and evasion plan is rehearsed and drilled, and we practice that thoroughly, so that each and every one in the team knows exactly what to do. So I think in the rehearsals before any operation, that emergency plan is practiced and rehearsed thoroughly before the operation, and that is actually the time where you learn about that specific operations escape and evasion plan. So each and every operation will be different. So you cannot have a course on escape and evasion long before an operation and think each and every escape and evasion plan will be exactly the same. It will never be. Each and every operation has got a different escape and evasion plan. I just want to mention that during our selection and some of our courses, we do have a part of courses where we teach the students how to escape and evade, which is quite a interesting and a nice part of our cycle, because there's a lot of fun in it as well.
Well, I have to ask now, what's the fun in it? If it's possible for you to tell us. I've heard about SW, of course, your friend, where they tried to capture one fellow, which he said was from the Northern Cape and quite a big man, a big lad, and they ended up capturing themselves. Is that the type of fun you mean?
Yeah, the other fun I'm mentioning, I'm thinking of when I was an instructor on some course there in the Caprivi. We dropped the students with a parachute in an area, and when they land, they have to hide the parachute, and then they must start to escape and evade. And then all the military bases, the police and other forces, we tell them that there's a group that will escape and evade, and they must try to catch them. And then these other military units, they put up roadblocks, and they send people with horses and motorbikes. But we give the students that dropped in by parachute, we give the other forces a time limit when they can start to look for them. And this group must then escape and evade to the base back. Now, the fun I'm talking about is, I can mention one incident where 2 of the guys, they didn't go straight to the base. They went to the police station of that area, and they apprehended the police, but they knew about this. So it's not there's no danger in it. So they went to the police station. They apprehended the policemen. They put on their dress. They bind them up, put them in the cells, lock the cells, and then they took the police car and they just drive through with blue lights, like as easy as fall out of a tree. They did it so easy because and they have to do it in buddy pairs. You never do something alone. It's in buddy pairs. So two of these guys went to the police station. They took over the police station and at night, and then obviously it was at night, and then they put on their police clothes. They took their police van and they just ride through all the way. And we're talking about 150 kilometers of escape and evasion. Some of the guys walked all the way and tried to escape and evade the forces. But it's quite fun because all the forces in the surrounding and the military bases and stuff, I mean, they would like to catch a Recce. I mean, that will be something great to them. So they go out and do their best to catch a special forces member. But they never succeed because the one guy I must mention, he stole a bulldozer. They got into a bulldozer, the one pair, buddy pair. They got hold of a bulldozer at the construction department, and they drove all the way with the bulldozer to the safe place. So there's a lot of fun in the escape and evasion part, which is quite funny, and you get the funniest stories that came out, and quite nice. So that's what I'm saying. That some of this escape and evasion course is quite interesting and fun.
It seems to me all is fair because, as you say, sir, if those other people can get hold of a special forces guy, I have to ask now, will he surrender just like that? Just because I'm there and I say, hey, come here, will he do that? Or will he start fighting?
No, you will. Obviously, he will start. He will first of all try to escape and get away. I mean, especially at night, it's easy to escape. But part of this escape and evasion is also during the day, and it happened before that some of other forces caught some of the special forces members, and the special forces member didn't have any other way of escaping, so he just gave over and he was caught. So it did happen, but that's also a learning curve.
He's not allowed to kick them or something and start running, you know.
Yeah, but there were incidents as well that happened with this escape and evasion part, where students got caught by other forces, and they were assaulted and stuff, and that wasn't part of the fun, and that was not part of the drills, that other forces must kick and hit some of the special forces members. So we did have bad experiences as well.
Yeah, I wonder how they can actually justify that. I mean, once they've got the man in custody, there's no need to start abusing him. But that's not part of the training. It's not part of this, what you call the dark phase. This is simply not to be caught.
Yeah, and
and
also you must remember, it's still own forces. I mean, you don't have to assault the person, kicking and hitting, and some were hit with sticks and stuff like that. So we had bad experiences as well.
Yeah, I remember. So this is, of course, not special forces at all. But when I did my police counterinsurgency training, at the end of a course, about after 6 weeks, you have like a week where you are supposed to chase the terrorists. And so they took the fittest constables, and then they would run with them. And they warned us beforehand, please, if you get hold of these people, don't work on them. Because in the previous course they did capture one and they did hang him upside down on a tree for a few hours, and they were threatening to make a fire underneath him, all sorts of things. They went totally out of hand. So I can understand that. Now I have...
No, it did happen.
Yeah. But anyway, so I spoke to somebody who's not a military person, and he asked me what I think is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask you also. But his viewpoint was that this training to escape and evade and with RV points is actually defeatist, because you're creating the mind of a soldier the idea that something will go wrong. What do we answer such a fellow? He's a psychologist, by the way, so let me roll my eyes.
Now, I don't know how to comment on this statement, but I don't think that the Special Forces team that must escape and evade after maybe operation wasn't successful and they have to withdraw, I don't think there's any psychological problem on our side because of that, because it can happen, and it did happen in some cases. Now, I don't know how to comment on that statement. So
yeah, it's a plain stupid one. I mean, you should feel better for the fact that, if something should happen, you can go and regroup somewhere else and you just carry on. I couldn't understand his viewpoint, really. I couldn't. I was staring at him, frankly, in amazement. But now I have to ask you, so I've got another question here. This is actually not a silly question. I'm being asked now to ask you, what is the most difficult time in Special Forces? And they wanted to know, would that be when you're working with anti-terrorism or counter-terrorism, or when you're in the counterinsurgency role, or say behind enemy lines? What would you consider is the most difficult time?
If I'm talking about the cycle, there's two things. First of all, the most difficult part of the cycle, that's during your training, is definitely the selection course. And if I must mention in operations, the most difficult part, I think, is the long distances that we walk towards the target. Remember, as I said previously, that the execution of the task at the target area is the easy part. The part going there and the part coming back is the most difficult part. So if I can mention, the most difficult part is the infiltration to a target area. I cannot recall that at any time in my career that at the target area, irrespective of what it is, attack or demolishing of a bridge or whatever the case may be, that is wasn't ever a difficult task for me. I think the most difficult task is the long distance walking towards a target and then walking back all the way. I think that's the most difficult part of any operation I did, and also during my career, that was the most difficult part.
I was asked a question, so once again, we've been going on this program now for a couple of months, and we have a lot of questions. Not all of them are down in the comments. Some people write us letters. I've been asked, why not jump on a bridge by parachute, reek within for demolition, and then start running?
People that ask that question, I think they see a lot of movies, Rambo movies or something like that. You must remember, if the aircraft must go to a target to drop paratroopers, he flies over a certain distance of that country's airspace, and he can be picked up. So the enemy can follow it, and they can see immediately there were paratroopers dropped. I mean, a parachute drop to demolish a bridge. I don't think that is ever in our minds to do that. The few operational drops we did in the past was to get to an area fast enough, and then we're talking about big groups. We're not talking about a small team. A parachute is a clear giveaway if they get dropped. If I can use the operation Crop Dave, that is Operation Iheki, they dropped in by parachute, and the enemy saw it, and they immediately knew that there will be an attack on the base. So they were spotted, and immediately the element of surprise is gone. And you need the element of surprise on your side when you do an attack or attack on a base or whatever the case may be. It could have worked if the parachute drop was far away from the target, and then they have to walk in still quite a long distance. Then it can work. But only in a conventional type of warfare, like if you take Kasinga, the attack on Kasinga, they were dropped in a big group of paratroopers to attack Kasinga, and that might work because it's more conventional type of warfare. If you go back to the Second World War, there's a few examples of that. But special forces, to do a reconnaissance, for instance, that's a big no-no. No parachuting. It can be done if it's a halo operation, in other words, very high altitudes, and at night, then the parachute team or the reconnaissance team will be dropped by halo. It stands for high altitude, low opening. They jump out of an aircraft that is flying very high. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it. And then they open the parachutes at a very low altitude, and then they land, they hit the parachutes, and then they can carry on with the operation. We've done operations like that in the past. So in certain circumstances, it will work. But before, when we do the analysis of a target, and we do the planning of the target, we look at all the infiltration methods. What is the best method to infiltrate and go and do this task? So if it boils down to a parachute jump, we will do the parachute jump. But to jump right onto the target that this person mentioned on a bridge and then demolish the bridge and come out, now that's a Rambo story. It cannot work like that.
I wonder if in the future, so if you have time, if we can have an episode on military parachuting, because I do know you've got national colours and you've completed all the courses, including the tandem jump, all of those. There's a lot of wrongful ideas out there about what military parachuting actually is, especially for special forces.
Correct.
Now I've been asked another question. So somebody asked me to ask you, how many rounds, shots, bullets will a special forces member shoot on his cycle before he actually goes on operation, on average?
Sure. That's a very good question. Does this person mean in the whole cycle on his training?
Yes, sir. Until he gets operational. How many? Because
we did at some stage we were working on a calculation what it cost to train a special forces member, and part of this a study that we did what it cost to train a special forces member was how many rounds will he utilize during his cycle, and how many bombs will he fire with the RPG-7, how much fuel is used, etc., etc. So we came up with a big amount of rounds, but I can't remember the amount, but it's in the thousands. It's a lot. And that goes also for rocket bombs or of RPG-7, mortar bombs, because each member in his cycle, each member gets trained on all the weaponry, and at some stage, at some instances, he's a LMG gunner, and the LMG gunner has got belts and belts of ammunition, and he fires a lot. So it's quite difficult to determine how many rounds each operator, or let's say student in his cycle, is firing, because it differs from person to person, and weapon by weapon. But we calculated in total. In other words, the ammunition that is used for that cycle, which is over a year. In fact, it's up to 18 months, and during that 18 months, it's thousands and thousands of rounds. But I cannot say it is so many rounds that each student is firing. It differs from course to course.
Hey, thank you, sir. Now, another one asked me, what happens to your rifle should it get wet? Let's say for some reason you're under the water. Now, I do know you're not from Recce. But do you cover this thing in a plastic bag, or do you just leave it and just start shooting, drop the barrel so the water comes out, and hopefully it will work?
Yes, especially the Recce people. They've got equipment that cover the weapon to seal it. So it is watertight, and it won't get wet. So you can use a weapon after diving. Let's call it a long period of diving, so water doesn't get into the barrel and stuff. But the AK-47, which is the weapon we mostly use, you can just tip it and let the water just run out of the barrel, and you can fire it.
The statement has been made that the Special Forces member is a walking compass. In other words, he can find his way. He can read maps like nothing else on earth. Would you agree with that, sir?
No, I don't. We get training in navigation in so many of our courses, because if you do navigation, let's say you move into an area like Angola, there is no outstanding points or mountains or whatever. It's just bush. So you have to do proper navigation just by compass and measuring your distance by walking, counting your steps. Now, you don't count every step. You take 1 minute and you see how many steps on the left foot. For instance, your left foot, how many steps do you give in 1 minute? And then you multiply that by 2, and then you know how many yards you cover in 1 minute. And then you leave it, you don't count it anymore. So you know in 1 minute you walk, let's say 114 yards. And you know that 114 yards is 100 meters approximately, and it differs from person to person. So we teach the students and operators to do a very thorough navigation. But there's no way that the operators will know their way, where to go without proper navigation, and get back without proper navigation. I also want to mention that we do not use navigational aids like sat nav or satellite
Yes.
GPSs, because GPS uses satellites, and normally the satellites are American satellites, and they can pick us up, and they can determine that we are moving in an area that is not ours. So we don't want that. So we went to basics. If we do an operation, it's map reading, it is proper navigation with a compass, and measuring your steps and stuff like that. So we do proper navigation the old way, so that we are not picked up. But if you do navigation in this manner, a lot of times it becomes a second nature, and you just get better and better and better, and you use less the compass, and you count less your steps. So if you do it a lot, like I can remember that in some instances when I was a team leader, I did the navigation, and at a later stage, I was so accurate in my navigation that I tell the team that the target is maybe 200 or 300 meters in front of me. And as we walk 300 and 400 meters, I hit the target area. So it is just a lot of practice, and if I can say experience, and that makes you a good a navigational person to navigate to a target and back. And it takes years of experience and time. And normally it's not only one person in a team that does the navigation. It is you appoint 2 or 3 people to do the navigation, and then you compare it at stops. You compare the navigation between the 3, and normally it's very close. So you never do navigation on your own, because you can make a mistake, and then you will not reach your destination 100%. We use 2 or 3 people in a team. The bigger the team, the more people you appoint to help with the navigation, and if you do that, you are more likely to be 100% correct. But the point that a person makes, that we know just by feeling, if I may call it that, to go to a point and come back without navigation, that will never happen.
I've been asked whether you follow the British SAS tradition, and I don't even know if it's true, that the map will never be folded in any other way as what it came out of printing shops. So that if somebody looks at the map, he can't really make out anything useful, but you will know, because you will know where you're going. That you always fold it back in the same way that you found it or were issued.
Yeah, if we receive maps when we prepare for a certain operation, we only have the area that is useful to us, and we cut the rest away. So the map is folded, in a small package, and also we don't make marks on the map. So if you lose the map and someone picks it up, they can see this team, where it's going and what the objective is. So we don't make any marks on the map. So we will smallen the map just for the area that is used to us, not the whole big map and fold it and then carry it with us. We will cut it out, and only the part that we're going to use is available to us.
Now I've been asked, you like to speak to us about the profile of a Special Forces soldier. Now I've been asked whether that profile would be the same for an officer as well as for a black operator. Is it the same across the board?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what type of person that will apply to join Special Forces. Some members that apply for Special Forces are already officers, and some is senior NCOs, and some are black, white, any color can apply for Special Forces. And then they do exactly the same evaluation throughout. Our officer is just then a student at a course, and his rank doesn't count anything during his cycle. He is a student and he gets a number on course. And then after the cycle, after his 18 months of training, then he is seen then still as an officer, and he will be utilized as an officer, and he will be respected as an officer like anywhere else in the SANDF. But surely the profile of an officer and an NCO definitely differs. But it also differs in before they did the cycle. So there's definitely a difference between the two. But during his evaluation in the beginning, they are all tested exactly the same way, and they must pass the evaluation quite well. So if an NCO doesn't pass the criteria to carry on with the cycle, or an officer doesn't comply with the criteria to be a Special Forces member, they will be withdrawn and they will be sent back to their units where they come from. So in that sense, as a student on cycle, they are tested and trained in exactly the same way. Take note that during his cycle, they do not do any leaders course or the team leaders course, which is much later, and it's also advanced courses. The team leaders course is a much advanced course, and there they will decide who will become team leaders and who not. Normally, the officers that passes the cycle will definitely do the team leaders course to become a team leader at the later stage. But there's also quite a few NCOs, corporal sergeants, staff sergeants that also does that course, and they will become team leaders later.
I've been hearing stories, perhaps you can confirm or deny, that in the old days, Special Forces poached the best of 3-2 battalions soldiers to become members of 5 Recce. Is that true?
I cannot say that is true. For sure, I don't think it's true. In the time when I did recruitment for Special Forces, I went to 3-2 battalion. I do exactly the same. I took the same procedures as I did at any other base. I go to a military base, irrespective if it's 3-2 battalion or whatever other unit, the parachute battalion, the same. I get everybody together in a hall. I discuss the whole presentation about Special Forces and what it entails and what the cycle is and what all the training is and the advanced courses. And then I ask them for those who, and I also have a projector there, slide machine in the past, or Lipro, which is coupled up with a computer, and I show them a presentation on photos and everything. And then after the presentation, then I ask them, who of you is now interested to join Special Forces. And those who are interested in Special Forces can stay behind, the rest can go. And then there will be a group of members that will stay behind, and then I start to do the evaluation with them. In other words, they will complete a few forms. There's a psychologist with me. They do a little OTIS test just for the interim. You know, it's not a very intensive psycho test, so they do that. And then also that takes us normally to lunchtime, and then after lunch, then they do the PT tests. And the entry test is not very strict and difficult. It's easy. It's just to see if they've got the ability to be trained and to make them fit. And those who pass that day, those are the people that we will send a signal to that unit, and the authority will say that they are authorized to go to Special Forces School at a certain date so that they can start with a cycle. There's no way that we ever, or the parachute battalion, or 3-2 battalion, that we, let's call it, if you will, steal their best members to become operators. No, we never did that.
Then I have a last question, sir, from all the viewers. You know, it's been building up a bit. I want to know, what happens if there's a Navy or an Air Force fellow who wants to join South African Special Forces? He's not an Army member. Must he resign now and re-enlist in the Army, or does he become an honorary Army member? What happens to such a man?
Okay, and I'm talking again, when I did recruitment for Special Forces, and I did recruitment a lot. And we've got certain areas, like for instance the Cape, the whole Cape area. For Special Forces Regiment, it's got a recruitment team there that will do the Cape, the whole Cape area. I did, when I was at the headquarters, I did the whole Pretoria area and the Free State, the Gauteng area and the Free State, and also Northwest, because it's a lot of military bases. So I did that. I had a recruitment team for that area. 5 Special Forces Regiment, they had a recruitment team that did the Limpopo area and also the whole of Natal. So we had different recruitment teams all over the area. So let's say, for instance, 4 Special Forces Regiment, they go to Simonstown to the diver school, and they do a recruitment session there. And there are some of the divers, Navy people, that's interested to join Special Forces. In my case, in Gauteng, I recruit medical service personnel. Other units, they recruit maybe Air Force personnel. It can be any person from any force, Air Force, Navy, South African Medical Services. It doesn't matter. Any person can apply. Any person can apply. Then he comes to Special Forces when he passes all the preliminary tests. We will send a signal to that unit and say this. We give authority for this person to come to Special Forces to do the cycle. He will keep his rank and his uniform and everything that he was when he was in the Navy or SAMS or Air Force or whatever. He will keep that uniform and his insignia and everything, and then he does the cycle. Now the cycle, when he does the cycle, he doesn't wear that uniform. We give them all a different uniform, a training uniform, and they get all the same equipment. So later, when you work with these people, you can't remember if it's Air Force or Navy or whatever. You don't know. only at the end of the course, then this person will go back because they get leave. Because after 18 months, they need leave to recuperate and to just get back to normal again. And in that period of time, they go back to the unit, and then they will give back all the equipment. They will not resign. It's not a resignation, but they will come back then to special forces, and then they will carry on with the advanced courses and stuff like that. And then during that time, he must do a transfer. He must apply to do a transfer from his corps to the infantry corps, because special forces still sorted under the infantry corps. So then you will become in the infantry corps. You will become a corporal, where he was maybe a killik in the Navy. You will now become a corporal. If you had stripes in the Air Force as a lieutenant or captain, then it will go over to the Army's insignia, rank insignia, and it will be stars there. So they do a corps transfer. They apply for a corps transfer from any other corps to infantry, and then everybody is then later exactly the same corps, and that is special forces.
Well, RSM, thank you so much for your time again. We are most grateful to you. We've learned a lot. I hope I've answered most of the questions. If a few of them were really stupid, please forgive me. We're trying to educate ourselves here as well. So as always, I say to you, if you have any, if you want to come and talk to us, please come and talk to us. Everybody is welcome. And until we meet again, God bless.
Thank you very much.